Okay, so I've been using the all-new iPhone 13 Pro Max for, I'm gonna say, since a couple of days after it came out. I've been meaning to make a video about it, just didn't get around to make one. So today is my full review of the all-new Apple iPhone 13 Pro Max. Let's go ahead and jump in. Now, as one of the two phones that I carry daily, I actually carry two phones. This is my second main phone. So I have two main phones, and the Pixel 6 Pro is my second main phone. As one of the two phones that I carry daily, I've gotten to play with this phone and I've gotten to really know this phone in and out. And I would say, no, I want to talk about the whole thing, but we're going to start off very simple. Let's start off with just the design, right? So if you're looking at this phone here, you can see that it looks just all too familiar, right? So it even looks like there's no difference between this and the iPhone 12 Pro Max. Now, this guy essentially is that 12 Pro Max with just some very slight differences, notably that camera lens that you see there, the size of it, the size of that camera lens. It's a slightly larger camera on the back there, or I should say camera lenses, right? So the size on these lenses is different. These are larger camera sensors when compared to what you had on the 12 Pro Max there. And another perceptible difference is going to be just the notch that you have on the front here. The notch has been reduced by 20%. You will be able to easily tell that the notch on here is slightly smaller than what you had on the 12, 11, and the previous generation. We also still stuck with that same lightning port, right? We all hate it, but it's there. It's Apple, what can you do? And the speakers, I love the speakers. Very, very, very loud speakers. And in terms of just the look, the overall look, it's pretty much the iPhone 12 Pro Max. And just flying over some of the, high level stuff here, it's a big phone. It's a large phone. So you're looking at a big boy here, right? Because of the even larger battery compared to the previous one. So the battery on here is it's larger than what you had in the previous iPhone. And you can feel that even in terms of just like the hefty weight that you have on this phone here. And it's exactly my type of phone, despite the fact that people are complaining about that weight. But anyway, so you're looking at a 6.7 inches for the panel there. So large screen there, an 87% screen to body ratio, and the display here is a Super Retina XDR OLED like Apple likes to call it, and I really like how bright it can get. And that's actually one of the very noticeable things that you have with this phone, right? Especially if you've used the previous one, and you can really notice that this one is brighter. We're talking up to 1,000 nits, right, in terms of brightness, and that would be for non-HDR content. I can't talk today. With HDR content, you're looking at 1,200 nits of brightness. That is pretty bright. So very impressive stuff, right? So image quality is just super sharp, as you would imagine here. Ppi density on the phone itself is 448. So you have 400 in ppi for the density. And if you think about that level of density, that is actually, pretty highly packed, right? The resolution is 2778 by 1284, I believe. And you have the support of the very popular Apple's ProMotion technology, right? So that high refresh rate, let's just go ahead and call that variable refresh rate, and it plays very, very well. Even though, you do have apps that are just locked at 60 hertz, for some reason they just won't go past that 60 hertz. Apple is working on a fix, via software, so that they can go ahead and fix that. But we'll get to see. But either way, user experience with that refresh rate is just very, very good. It's been excellent. And I also want to add that the ProMotion that you have available on here is going to bounce as low as 10 hertz all the way up to 120 hertz. And it also depends on how fast, or the movement of your finger, how fast you scroll. It adapts to that and adjusts to whatever you're scrolling through, whatever the screen you're looking at, it will adapt accordingly. And it's actually even playing a role with battery, because by doing that, obviously going all the way down and all the way up, you're able to save on battery life, which, by the way, battery life here is insane. And we'll get to that in just a moment. But I just want to emphasize that even though we know these phones, right? So iPhones to be generally boring because the user experience is generally the same, right? The same interface, the way it looks and all that good stuff. And they just work very, very well. That's one of the appeals of iPhones. A lot of people just love the iPhone simply because it's very, very consistent. It might be boring, but it's extremely consistent. ProMotion here, I personally think, has changed the user experience for the past however long. I've always felt like if you were using an iPhone 11 or, whatever, 12, compared to an iPhone 11, to an iPhone 10, to previous iPhones, the user experience was generally the same. They were all locked at, 60 hertz for the refresh rate. But with this guy here, it just enhances that user experience. It just makes it feel better in the hand, right? It just makes it work better. It really, really makes for a good user experience. But anyway, so let's go back to the battery. Battery here, Apple advertises, I believe, 25 hours of battery life. Obviously, it depends on how you calibrate your phone, but it is so good. The battery here is literally a 2-day battery. Depending on how you use your phone, you might really, specific to this one, right? So the 13 Pro Max, I don't know why I keep saying the 11. The 13 Pro Max, the battery here is just insane. It's really just hard to kill this battery. It's like you have to really try to kill the battery. But anyway, let's go ahead and talk performance. And before we talk performance, if this is your first time visiting, welcome to the channel. Of course, I'm certainly hoping that you're enjoying the content. And if you are, please hit both the like and the subscribe button there. I truly appreciate that. But anyway, so the 13, just the lineup, right? So 13, 13 Pro, 13 Pro Max, 13 Mini, they all are using, or they all are boasting Apple's A15 Bionic chip, which, as you would imagine, performance is just fantastic. You know, this is kind of an area that can get redundant because they're just so good, right? So just no additional words to really explain how good this phone is in terms of performance. When you hit this level, this category of phones, it's really hard to like quantify how good it is. I mean, I guess you can, but let's just keep it simple. It's very good. Performance is top notch. You do have 6 gigs of RAM on top of that, so you have quite a few things open in the back and be able to toggle back and forth between a variety of apps without any stutter, really. It's super snappy and absolutely no lag whatsoever. At least I haven't encountered any, whether you are gaming or even just editing video. And I personally don't edit videos on here, but if you were, you know, it has an incredible GPU performance. If you are the type who edit their videos on their phone, you'll be able to do that here with not a problem at all. Just incredible stuff here. And it also does support 5G, and we do have a few configurations on here that include a 1 terabyte config. I personally don't know anyone who would buy that. Would you? I would love to know what people do with that much internal storage or carry around that much space, right? Usually all the stuff that I have, I just keep it on my computer, and I just, with 128 gigs or 256, I'm fine with it because I generally keep my stuff on my computer here, things that are heavy. But anyway, I digress there for a second. So you have different configs on this phone here. You have 128 gigs, which is the model. I went for the cheapest model, which is 128 gigs. There's of course the 256 gigs of internal storage. There's a 512, so you just keep doubling. So 128, 256, 512, and of course 1 terabyte if you wanted to go for that. So it looks like Apple is keeping a little bit of a variety, as you can see here. But anyway, so let's go ahead and talk about cameras. And if you think about the iPhone 12, right? So the iPhone 12, or well, let's say the 12 Pro that I reviewed last year, which is actually the phone that my wife carries, that is a very, very good camera. Now imagine something that's even more impressive than what you have on the 12 Pro. That's kind of the level where we at with this guy here, especially when it comes to video. I just cannot emphasize how good video is on this phone. And it's been mentioned by a number of tech content creators just because of how good it is right now. One thing I want to emphasize here, or one thing I want to highlight here really quick before we go back to the video, is what I've noticed with the picture quality. It seems like Apple, kind of kicked that saturation level a little bit higher than usual, where when you compare photos taken by this phone, it just looks a little bit richer than what we are accustomed to with iPhones, right? So I'm not saying they're going to the level of, Samsung, but I can tell that they've definitely kicked the saturation up a notch this year, especially when you compare those pictures to what the 12 Pro Max would take. Now, switching back, of course, to videos, it's just known that iPhone cameras, when it comes down to videos, iPhones have generally done a fantastic job compared to other phones, right? So you always get good videos on all phones generally, but iPhones generally tend to be better when it comes down to video, and in this case they've done the same thing with additional shooting modes, and they've done an even better job with it when it comes down to low light settings. Also, that new A15 Bionic chip just seems to be doing some miracles in post, especially with reducing noise and low light settings, because it brightens things up. It really does. All 3 lenses are 12 megapixels, and they include a wide, a telephoto, and an ultra wide, and you will of course have have dual tone flash and that LiDAR scanning on it. There's one feature here that needs to be highlighted, and a lot of people have talked about it, and that is the macro camera. So that macro camera it's very, very neat when you close up and close to these subjects, like, whether you're filming flowers, whatever it is the case that you're filming up and close, it does a fantastic job at automatically, switching into that macro mode to really get those very clean close up. Now, obviously, the only downside is that doing that automatically, so you don't have that much control over when it switches, but it works very well. And then of course we have the new cinematic mode, which is the one mode that's been advertised like crazy by Apple. It works. I personally haven't used it like that. I tested it out when I bought the phone, but I haven't really found myself in a situation where I would use it. But that's just me. Again, iPhone pictures generally, at least in the past, have always been the type to try to remain true to color, but because many people tend to gravitate towards a type of photography that offers more vibrant colors, I would say richer details, richer colors, more enhanced photography, I think that's one of the reasons Apple went ahead and implemented different modes, so that if you want something that would have kind of a slightly enhanced type of photography, you can go ahead and switch over to that. So say you want more control over how warm or how cool you want your pictures, to come out, you get that level of control by switching to different modes. And some of the few settings, some of the few changes that they have. Now you cannot compare this to, let's say, the Pro mode that is offered on like the Galaxy Tab S21 Ultra, for example, but now you get a little bit more control playing around with the modes that are offered on this phone here. Now, the front facing camera is a 12 megapixel camera, and that also takes some pretty clean pictures. Now, let me just go ahead and give you my overall, recap, right? So the iPhone 13 Pro Max here offers just raw power like no other out there, and that translates into top level performance. So gaming, multitasking, you name it, it will do all of that, and it will do all of it very, very well. You have a top-notch camera, unmatched battery life. It is definitely a go for me. I personally very much like it. No disappointments when it comes down to this phone, really. I think it's a good phone. It's a very, very good phone. Of course, if you were in the market for a phone, depending on what you're looking for, right? So if you're looking for a top-notch, the best iPhone you could get, it's this guy here. No question about that. It's a very, very good phone. Now, if you're trying to save some money, but still stay with something that kind of looks like this design, obviously you would need to go for like a 12 Pro Max or something like that. But if you have a 12 Pro Max already, it's not something I would advise for you to upgrade to this guy. Sure, you have some slight differences and a better camera, but unless it's something that you really focused on, let's say if you are, tech content creator and you don't want to buy a DSLR, you don't want to buy a separate camera, and you want something that's going to offer you top level video quality, and you have a 12 Pro Max and you want to upgrade to this, yeah, I'll say for sure, go ahead, because the video coming out of this phone, yeah, it's up there. They've done a very good job at that. But other than that, if you just have a 12 Pro Max and you want to upgrade to this, I would say don't do it unless you just want to do it. There are a lot of things that are similar just in terms of hardware also, and of course you'll be able to enjoy a lot of the software perks that you would get with this guy here. But anyways, that's just my take, and I'm certainly hoping that this was informative. Please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. I'm going to catch you in the comment section like I always do. I'm also going to catch you in the next video, and up until that next video, of course, as always, stay safe out there.